Hey there, and welcome back to the Ingrain Workshop. I'm Rick, and in today's video, we're going to be replacing a broken window pane in a single hung window in my house. I was cutting grass the other day and I ran over a rock and it shot the rock out and went through the window. So today, we're going to be replacing that broken window pane. So let's get started. Okay, so this is the broken window pane that I was talking about. This is the window that's in Kiefer's bedroom. Like I had mentioned earlier, while I was cutting the grass, I ran over a rock and it shot the rock literally through the window. So now I need to replace this bottom pane of glass. This is a single hung window, so the bottom of the window is operable, so it does slide up and down. But in order to replace the window, we're going to leave it here in the down position. The first thing we're going to have to do is remove the trim. I think the window terminology for it is the mullion, but for a woodworker, I just call it the trim. There's a perimeter trim that runs all the way around the window. We're just going to take a putty knife and try to remove this trim without damaging it. I think it's just plastic. So we're going to take our time in removing that in order to not damage any of it. So let's start removing it. So I'm going to start here in the corner, and right here in the corner where the two pieces of trim meet, there's actually some white caulk, and I'm going to just try to remove the caulk the best I can before removing the actual trim pieces, because I don't want the caulk to adhere the side piece to the bottom piece. I want to break that connection loose. So you can just take your putty knife and run it down the joint, and you should be able to break the joint loose between the bottom trim piece and the side trim piece. And once you've got that caulk removed, then you can just kind of work the putty knife behind the trim piece and try to pop it out. And you can see here now I've got the side loose, and I can just work my way up all the way up the window. Here at the top, I'm going to have the same situation. There's a bead of caulk that I'm just going to need to break loose so I can get the side loose. And so now I've got the side piece of trim off. I thought this was plastic, but it appears to be an aluminum. It's an aluminum piece. So you just want to be very careful not to damage it, because we are going to have to reinstall this. So I'm going to sit this off to the side for now and then start on the rest of the trim. Since the trim is aluminum, just take your time and be careful, because you don't want to bend it, and just slowly pry it loose and work your way down. I did notice that the trim was cut at a 45-degree angle on the side pieces, and then the top and bottoms just had a straight 90-degree cut. So you will need to remove the side pieces first and then remove the top and bottom pieces. Okay, now that I've got all the perimeter aluminum trim off, now I need to take the glass off. So before you do any work on a window, you want to make sure that you're wearing the proper eye protection, and also you're wearing the proper gloves. These are non-tear gloves or non-cut gloves, just in case whenever you're handling glass, you want to make sure that you're wearing the right personal protective equipment. So the next thing we're going to do is remove the glass. Now the only thing holding the glass in is a bead of silicone that goes all the way around the perimeter of the window, and it's just a clear bead of silicone that the window's put in. So I'm going to have to break that silicone loose with the putty knife, and then I'll be able to take the glass out. The issue with removing the silicone is that it's on the inside of the window. I guess I could have went inside the bedroom and tried to pry it loose with the putty knife from the inside instead of working from the outside. So when I did start to pull the glass loose, it just shattered into 1,000 pieces because the silicone was not letting loose of the glass. So I went and got a heat gun and loosened up the silicone. And by doing that, then it became very gooey, and I was able to get the putty knife behind the glass in the frame, and get it out. And you can see on this last piece, I'm actually able to remove the entire piece instead of breaking it up into little pieces just by heating it along the perimeter of the window frame. And that really worked out great. I wish I would have had more patience and did that from the beginning, but I didn't. But you definitely should start out by just using a heat gun to remove the glass. So as you can see, the right way to do this is to take a heat gun, heat up the silicone, use your putty knife to get behind the window frame and the actual glass pane, and then pry it slowly out. As you heat up the silicone, it will break loose. When I first started, I just thought I could pop it loose from the silicone, but the silicone's, it just seals it in too tight. So just take your time, go out, get a heat gun, blow dryer, something to heat up the adhesive, and then heat it up or heat up the silicone, and then you should be able to take it out like I did that last piece, just one single pane at a time instead of breaking it up into 1,000 little pieces. All right, so I hope that helped. Okay, now that I've got all the glass out of the window frame, I'm going to take a straight razor and just clean up all the old silicone. I want to get all the old silicone removed because I'm going to have to put a new bead of silicone around the perimeter of the window frame and then set the new pane of glass in. So right now I'm going to go get a straight razor and clean this silicone out. Using a straight razor here with the silicone hot and gooey, removed some of it, but this was not going to be the way to remove all the existing silicone caulk from around the window. Okay, so I have went back and cleaned all the silicone caulk from around the perimeter of the window frame. The easiest way to do that, I had to heat it up to get the silicone loose so I could take the glass out, but it really makes it really gooey. So I let it harden up a little bit, and then I just went back and tried to take it off with the putty knife, and that worked okay. So I went and got some WD-40, and I sprayed the perimeter of the window frame with WD-40 and came back and got the big caulk off with the putty knife, and then I just took a Scotch-Brite pad and used that to get off the smaller pieces of caulk and got the entire perimeter of the window cleaned. I saved you guys from having to see all that painstaking work, but trust me, WD-40 is the way to go, and then just a putty knife and a Scotch-Brite pad, and you should be able to clean it up fairly quickly. The next thing we're going to do is I've taken the measurements, and my window is going to need to be cut 29 3/8 inches wide by 33.5 inches wide. So we're going to go inside the workshop and cut our window pane to fit inside this window. Okay, so I have a 30 by 34 inch piece of glass, and I'm going to have to cut this down to 33.5 by 29 3/8. So I'm going to go ahead and just mark out 33.5. And then I'll take my glass cutter and get it lined up. So based on the glass cutter that I've got, I'm probably going to have to be off the line about 1/8 of an inch. And then I'm just going to take and hold the glass cutter vertical to the glass and then just score a mark all the way down. So now I have a scored line. I'll take and move the glass to the edge. From this angle, you should be able to see the scored line. I'm just going to take and hit it a couple of times from the bottom until I can see that it's cracked. And then break it loose. And just like that, a 1/2 inch has been cut off of this glass. So now my glass is 33.5 inches, which is what I need. And I need it by 29 3/8. So I'm going to take and just rotate the glass 90 degrees. And then make my 29 3/8 inch marks. And then I'm just going to repeat the process. I'm going to set my level in place. I'm going to have it about 1/8 of an inch back from the marks to give myself enough room for my actual cutting blade. Then I'm going to hold the level down tight, not tight enough to bust the glass, of course, and then do the same thing. I'm going to keep the glass cutter at 90 degrees, make my scored line all the way down. Now the corner piece did come off, but that's not going to affect me any. I'm going to slide out the glass. Do the same thing to this corner. I'm just going to hit on it a couple of times. And there you see the glass came off. There was a little piece here at the end that didn't come off, but I should be able to break that off pretty cleanly. And there you have it. The piece is now cut, and I'm going to take it back outside, and we're going to just dry fit it in the opening. If it dry fits, then we're going to take and run some silicone all the way around the perimeter of the inside of the window frame, and then we'll set the window glass back in place. All right, so we're going to dry fit the glass in place. We're going to start with the top and then slide it all the way up to the top. And then I can pretty much tell that that fits perfect. We're not going to have any issues there. So I'm just going to take it back out and then go ahead and put the silicone in, and then we'll set the glass in. So let me just set this glass off to the side, and then we'll take and run a bead of silicone all the way around the inside of the window frame, and then we'll put the glass back in place, and that will seal the glass back in place. And then we'll just work in reverse order. We'll come back and we'll put the bottom and top trim pieces in. Then we'll put the two side pieces in. We'll put the screen back up, and then that should wrap up this project.
Okay, I'd probably use clear silicone caulk, but all I had was white. My window frame is white, so I just went ahead and used the white. It probably doesn't matter, but if I had to go out and buy some new silicone caulk, I would just go ahead and probably go with the clear.
Okay, now we have silicone, which is 100% waterproof. You don't want to use caulk here. You definitely want to use outdoor silicone. We're using white, our windows are white. Now that the silicone's in place, I can take and install the window. Now I'm just lightly pressing around the perimeter just to seal in the silicone. And that's it for the most part. The window will hold once the silicone dries. Then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take our window trim. We're going to go ahead and remove all the existing caulk that's on them, and then install them. We're going to install the top, the bottom, and then the two sides. We're going to clean up the window. We're going to remove the glass decal, and then put the screen up, and then we should be done.
So in my case, and yours might be different, the top and bottom pieces were cut at the exact same width of the window, and they just each had a 90-degree cut on the ends. And then the side pieces were cut at a 45 to give you the mitered corners. Because they're cut like that, you're going to have to, when you take them out, you're going to have to take out the sides first and then the top and bottom. And then when you go back to reinstall them, you're going to have to do it in reverse order. You're going to have to install the top and bottom pieces first. And then once you get those pieces in, then you're going to have to come back and install the two side pieces that have the 45 mitered cuts. Like I said, yours might be different, but this is how mine was. And if they're that way, then you're going to have to remove them and install them in that order. Once I got the trim pieces reinstalled, then I went and just got some Windex and just went and cleaned up the window. I did get a little caulk in the corners, so you might have to take and use a straight razor just to clean off the corners. And I think the actual window pane had a label on it from the big box store, so I just again used a straight razor just to peel that off. But that's pretty much it. Once you get the window installed, get the trim pieces back in place, get it all cleaned up, you're pretty much done. I think the last thing that I had to do after this was just put up the screen, and the project for the most part was done. And it's a very satisfying project that can be done fairly cheap.
So here you have it. I've got the window pane back in place. It's been caulked, silicone caulked all the way around the perimeter. I've installed the window trim back. I'll go ahead and put the window screen back in place. Window screen needs to be replaced. That'd be a future project. Other than that, we're pretty much done here. This is a pretty simple project, and I think the glass pane costed me $20. So basically that was it, just 20 bucks to fix this window. So that's going to pretty much wrap it up. So just to recap, the project took approximately 2 hours to complete. It didn't take me that long. A couple of the materials that you're going to need is a caulk gun, some silicone caulk, and then a glass cutter. And then either a blow dryer or a heat gun, and a razor knife. That's pretty much all the equipment that you need to do this project. A couple of things I wish I would have done differently. I took some rough measurements before I went to the big box store to buy the glass. And I did that before taking off the window trim. I just took out my tape measure, took some rough dimensions, went down to the big box store and had them cut the glass to those dimensions. Well, when I got back and I took off the actual mullion or trim, I noticed that the glass was cut much smaller than the actual opening. So I had to go get a glass cutter and recut the glass probably about a 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch smaller on the two sides. But I was able to do that and it wasn't a problem. If you don't want to cut the glass or you don't have a glass cutter, you can always take the broken glass out first, measure your opening, and then probably take a 1/16 to an 1/8 inch off that measurement, and then just go down to the big box store because they will cut the glass to size for you at no additional cost. I think the glass pane cost $20, and then I had the silicone caulk, I had the heat gun, I had the caulk gun, I had all the other materials. So for me to do it, it was 20 bucks, 2 hours. Well worth it. It's the first time I've done it. It's a fairly easy project to do, and again, it doesn't take a lot of tools to do it. I'll leave a link in the video description below to where you can get the caulk gun, the glass cutter, and the gloves. I highly recommend using glass gloves because the last thing you want to do is cut your hands. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please leave it a thumbs up, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring that notification bell. I want to thank everyone for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day. This is Rick with the Engraving Workshop. We'll see you next time.